That year, there were no ghosts in Lanruo Temple. That year, Bai Niangzi had not yet met Xu Xian. That year, 8 people crossed the East China Sea and startled the dragon. That year, a young man arrived in Guobei County. Wang Zhe discovered that he could obtain various rewards by slaying demons and eliminating demons. Quiet Sutra, Luohangong, flying on the cloud, 5 thunders in the sky, 9 turn golden pill, 5 color divine light. 100 years later, looking back, the 4 seas and thousands of mountains are all arched, and the 9 seclusions and 10 categories all bow down. Keywords of the novel. I am searching for longevity in Liaozhai without a pop-up window. I am searching for longevity in Liaozhai to download the complete set of TXT, and I am searching for the latest chapter of longevity in Liaozhai to read. Chapter 1. The Impermanence of Yin and Yang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The Impermanence of Yin and Yang. On the 8th day of March, there are no taboos. Guobei County, County Government. Fork it out, fork it out. Master waved his hands impatiently. 2 yamen runners forked out a man in his 40s. Where is the law of heaven? Where is the law of heaven? The man shouted. If we continue to make trouble, we'll put you in jail. What are you looking at? The yamen runner shouted, and the people around scattered like frightened birds. Wang Zhe, who had just returned from patrolling the streets, witnessed this scene. Ho, what's going on? The day before yesterday, that person's son was killed by Huang Gongzi riding a horse, and he sued the yamen. What kind of person is Huang Gongzi? How could the county magistrate punish him? If this continues, he might really be imprisoned. Ho Zhu sighed beside him. Huang Gongzi. A few days ago, I just came back, and when I entered the city, it was quite lively. Didn't we see each other from afar, wearing brocade robes, riding tall horses, and feeling proud? I heard that there is still an expert around me who said he got into the game. I heard that Constable Xu can't pass 3 moves under his command. Really? That's a master. 7 or 8 of us can't beat Constable Xu. Constable Xu said he can kill a cow with just 1 punch. How powerful that person is! Wang Zhe exclaimed. Listen to him boasting. I even said I can have 10 daughters at night. Do you believe me? But I heard that Huang Gongzi robbed a girl in the village yesterday and injured her parents. He's really nothing. Be quiet, let's go. I'll treat you to a drink today. Wang Zhe smiled and patted Lao Ho's shoulder. At night, the city fell silent. Under the cold moonlight, a figure suddenly appeared on the roof of the Huang family, one of the largest households in Guobei County. The person, dressed in black and covered in a mask, looked into the courtyard from the roof. There is a room with lights on and the sound of talking. In the room, there was a table of good wine and food, 2 people, and a handsome young man in his early 20s, dressed in brocade, sat at the head. Across from him sat a man in his 30s, with a stern expression and a knife beside him. It's my honor to receive your help, sir. Let me toast you, sir. The young master picked up his glass. You're welcome, young master. The 2 of them had just raised their glasses when they heard a crisp sound coming from outside. Someone. The man with a strong suit reached out and grabbed the knife in his hand. He arrived at the door and didn't rush out. He first looked out through the crack in the door and saw a man in black standing in the yard, holding a tile in his hand. To cast stones and ask for directions, creak, the door opened, and the strong man came to the yard with a knife, staring coldly at the man in black. Who are you? Huang Gongzi, where do you want to go? The man in black shouted behind him. The man with strong armor didn't turn his head back and drew his sword to remove its sheath. Catch the hidden weapon. The other party waved their hand and the sound of the wind blew through them. The strong man quickly dodged, but saw a glimmer of light, like a shooting star. Then his neck cooled and the night breeze poured into his throat. The pretentious man covered his throat, blood flowing out of his fingertips, his eyes wide open, and his face full of shock. Okay, he took a few steps back and fell to the ground. What's so good? That's it, you're still a master. The man in black also looked surprised. A book appeared in front of the man in black, shining with light. On the cover, there were 4 ancient Chinese characters. Yin Yang Impermanence. Opening the ancient book, lines of text appeared on the originally blank page. In the Zhou dynasty, 18 innocent people were indiscriminately killed and 36 were injured, and they should be punished. Award, Luohangong. There seemed to be a flying rainbow flying into the black-clothed man, only he could feel it, and then some cultivation methods added to his mind. This is the method of internal cultivation, which is the authentic practice of Buddhism. It is the cornerstone of practicing internal skills, and after practicing it, one can cultivate diamond qi. Indeed, he is also a villain and deserves to be killed. This time, he finally rewarded something valuable. Huang Gongzi, it's your turn. The man in black looked up at the panicked Huang Gongzi. Who are you, who sent you, and how much money did you get? Your father asked me to kill you. He said that giving birth to such an unfilial son like you is a shame to our ancestors. Impossible, impossible. No matter who sent you, how much money he gave you, I'll give you twice, no, 5 times, 10 times. It's getting late, let's go. You can't kill me. I just joined the Sanha sect. With a flash of light, Huang Gongzi's words were cut off. He covered his throat, widened his eyes, took a few steps back, and collided with the table. The bowl and plate fell to the ground, making a crackling sound. Huang Henyan, indiscriminately killing 12 innocent people, destroying the innocence of 11 people, injuring 60.4 people, should be punished. Award, Wangqi Technique. The man in black saw another bright light flying up and entering his body. Between heaven and earth, all things have spirits. Mountains, rivers, birds, beasts, yin houses, and yang houses all have special energy fields, which may be weak or strong. Looking at the energy, one can determine good or bad luck and change. This is the way of technique. Suddenly, a large amount of knowledge flooded into his mind, but in an instant, he had already learned this Wangqi technique. After killing these 2 villains, the man in black climbed over the wall and left. Killed, killed. Screams rang out in the middle of the night, piercing through the tranquility of the county town. In a corner of Guobei County, there is a courtyard that enters one by one. A dark shadow climbed over the wall, put away its iron sword, took off its night clothes, and carefully hid it. It is Wang Zhe, the constable of the Yamen in Guobei County. Today's harvest is truly abundant, comparable to the past year. The main reason is that this one skill, one technique, is indeed rare. The method of internal cultivation is exactly what I need. About 2 years ago, one night, Wang Zhe was in another world, listening to romantic songs and drinking with a beautiful girl. At that time, the other party's pretty face was flushed, their drunk eyes were blurred, and they were already 7% drunk. Wang Zhe's heart was filled with joy, but suddenly he fainted. When he woke up again and found himself in another world, although extremely reluctant, he had to accept reality. Daong, Guobei County, was a Yamen constable, and his son inherited his father's business. Not becoming a prince, a general, or a beggar prisoner, not good or bad. After he caught a thief, the ancient book Yin Yang Impermanence suddenly appeared, like the rumored golden fingers. There are rewards for catching or killing bad people. For example, if you catch a thief, you will reward him with some silver. Capturing the snitch, he gained the lightness technique, which rewards the villains he captured or killed. In the past 2 years, he has obtained a lot of silver coins and learned light body technique, dart, iron cloth shirt, catcher, and flowing light sword, which is his sword technique for killing the Zhou dynasty in Huang Henyan tonight. The sword is as swift as a stream of light, beautiful and deadly. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Luohangong Spring Night Tower. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 2 Luohangong Spring Night Tower. Guobei County is not big, and it is relatively peaceful on weekdays. Wang Zhe was able to achieve these gains in 2 years mainly because he participated in an anti-bandit operation and received rewards from several mountain bandits. Try this Luohangong. Wang Zhe arrived at the courtyard, with his chest and knees wide open, his cheeks hooked and his head pulled out, his tongue pressed against his palate, his eyes looked straight, his breathing was even, his breath poured into the dantian, his thoughts held together, and he completed it in one go, as if the entire movement had been practiced hundreds of times. The iron cloth shirt he previously obtained was a method of external training, which involves practicing strength, meat, muscles, and bones, as well as beating and boiling the body. After achieving success, his skin became rough and his flesh became thick, and his strength increased significantly. However, the methods of internal practice are rarely mentioned and not detailed. This Luohangong is different. 18 moves are all internal exercises. This first type of skill is fundamental, from which all phenomena emerge and all cleverness comes. But it is also the most difficult. Ordinary cultivation requires at least 3 years of practice before one can enter. The Zhou dynasty was unwilling to endure dry and arduous training. Without laying a solid foundation, they practiced the following moves, like a castle in the air, rootless duckweed, scattered by the wind and floating by the water. Wang Zhe was enlightened and easily crossed the most difficult threshold, saving years of hard work. After standing for about an hour and a half, he felt a warm and comfortable lump in his abdomen. If practiced internally, true qi will be generated. Take a break from work and sleep until dawn. The next morning, I woke up to hear the crowing of chickens. Morning exercise, standing on piles to improve internal skills. In the past 2 years, although there have been cheats, he has been practicing day and night. Like the flowing light sword, after mastering the characters, wielding the sword no less than 1,000 times a day, rain or shine, this is the brilliance of that sword. After an hour, finish your work, eat, lock the door, and go to the yamen as a servant. Upon entering the yamen, I saw the old marquis exchanging glances with me and pulling him to the corner. Something big happened last night. Old Ho whispered. What's going on? The young master of the Huang family and the expert he invited were killed right at the Huang family mansion, said the old Ho with a hint of joy in his eyes as he spoke. Ho, what do I think of you saying that you seem very happy about this? Alas, don't talk nonsense. I am very saddened by Huang Gongzi's death. Lao Ho immediately became stern and said. After a while, the constable Xu Xian came to order and then led a group of constables into the lobby of the yamen. County magistrate, county lieutenant, and Guobei County's 3 giants have all made rare appearances, each with a black face, as if the life last night was very disharmonious. So grand, it is indeed because of the incident where Huang Gongzi was killed last night. The county magistrate directly slapped the table when he mentioned the murder that occurred last night. Request to solve the case within 10 days, no one is allowed to take leave, he personally supervises the case, and the county captain is specifically responsible. Subsequently, a group of constables were sent out to gather clues, and as usual, Wang Zhe and Lao Ho formed a group. Just after leaving the yamen, I ran into the man who came to report yesterday. Lao Ho quickly walked up and stopped him, dragging him to a corner. Last night, Huang Gongzi was killed at home. Did you hire someone to commit the crime? Old Ho asked in a low voice. Ah, that person died of harm. That's great, the heavens have eyes. The person was momentarily stunned, then trembled and shed tears. It's not me, I hope he dies, but I don't have the courage or the money, the skinny man quickly explained. Then either stay away from me or come with me to the yamen now and put you in jail. I'm leaving now. The person quickly turned around and ran, running very fast, afraid of being caught in jail if he slowed down. Wang Zhe just smiled and didn't say anything. He knew that the old marquis was kind-hearted. If that person dared to make trouble in the county government now, he would definitely be arrested in prison, punished, and beaten to death. I hope that guy doesn't get involved in this matter, Laoye sighed. Let's go find any clues, said Wang Zhe. What are you looking for? The Zhou dynasty is a master, and none of us together are opponents of Constable Zhu. Constable Zhu cannot pass 3 moves under his command. Who can kill him? How could such a person be in Guobei County? What do you mean? The ones who killed Huang Gongzi were either passing knights who saw injustice on the way, eradicated the evil and killed the evil. Alternatively, their enemies followed from outside the city. Regardless of which, they probably left long ago. Is it possible that it was a robbery? No, Mr. Huang's family has a lot of wealth, and he didn't lose a few taels of silver last night. The old marquis shook his head. In fact, Wang Zhe had planned to grab some money last night, but he was worried that the servants of the Huang mansion would discover him. Based on his principles of prudence and stability, he did not stay in the Huang mansion. Okay, is the analysis very reasonable? That's natural. Have you worked as a constable for me for nothing for the past decade? Old Ho smiled and said. The old marquis's name is Ho Zhu, and he was a close friend of Wang Zhe's late father. He took good care of Wang Zhe in the yamen. On weekdays, whether it's investigating or patrolling, the two of them are mostly together. So, let's just put on a show about this matter. That Mr. Huang is expected to come back soon. The flowing county official and the iron-clad Mr. Huang are the true leaders of Guobei County. I don't know what kind of storms he will bring when he returns, and how many people will suffer along with him. The old marquis sighed. They walked around the streets a few times before reaching noon, found a place to eat, and continued to wander. Watching the sky darken, he returned to the county government office and took on a mission to return home. Because he received some thank you money on the way, Ho Zhu invited Wang Zhe to the tavern to have a drink. The alcohol here is turbid, and there are still some lees inside. It's really difficult to swallow suddenly, but fortunately Wang Zhe has become accustomed to it. After drinking a bowl of wine, old Ho's words became more frequent. Today, the coroner conducted an autopsy, and both of the 2 people who were killed had their throats sealed with one sword. There was no second wound on their bodies. How fast that sword was! I really want to see it. What's so nice about that? Why don't you go to Chunshao Tower to see the girl? When will you invite me? Wang Zhe smiled and said. Hey, color is a steel knife for scraping bones. You're young, don't get caught up in those bad habits. Well, I think you should have gone 4 times this month, not 5 times. I went to investigate the case, it was very difficult. Old Ho-E said with a serious tone. Well, I understand. It must be very hard. Do you have physical labor? Pay attention to your health, and as you get older, you need to exercise restraint. After returning home from the wine shop, Wang Zhelin continued to practice Liaoguang's sword and Luohang's skill before going to bed. For 3 consecutive days, they pretended to be working hard to solve the case, searching for clues everywhere. In fact, everyone knew that this case could not be solved by these people alone. On the 4th day, the sky was overcast, and it seemed that it would rain at any time. The famous Mr. Huang from Guobei County has returned. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Huang Laoye's Qi Watching Technique. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Huang Laoye's Qi Watching Technique. Mr. Huang's name is Huang Shen, and he has been standing out in Guobei County since his grandfather's generation. In his generation, he is even more impressive. A bank, gambling house, pawn shop, silk. Many people secretly say that Mr. Huang is the real master of Guobei County, and the county magistrate still has to act according to his expression. Soon, the Huang family sent someone to bring back the bodies of Huang Hengyan and the Zhou dynasty, as well as the files related to this incident. Another person stayed in the county government office for a long time. Huangfu, a tall middle-aged man, looked at the corpse lying on the ground, his face gloomy as if it were a cloudy sky. "This is his son. When we leave, we'll be fine, but when we come back, there won't be anyone." In Guobei County, his Huang family dog dares to walk horizontally when he goes out. Who dares to touch his Huang Shen son? Tai Sui's head goes to earth. Seeking death. What clues can the two gentlemen discern? Both Gongzi and the Zhou dynasty were silenced with a sword from the front. The Zhou dynasty was considered an 8th-grade cultivator. According to the records in the dossier and the descriptions of the servants in the mansion, the murderer had a brief confrontation with him. To kill the Zhou dynasty so cleanly and efficiently, the opponent may have a 3rd-level and 6th-level cultivation. Today, I checked the registered residents of Guobei County, and found no suspicious person. If there were 6 grades of cultivation, I would not live in such a small county. So, this villain is highly likely to have met on the young master's way back, or to have formed a feud before. I heard that there was quite a stir when the young master returned, and did he have any enemies in the Sanha sect? Huang Shen's face darkened even more after hearing this. Although Hengyan is a bit of a playboy, he can still distinguish the importance from the importance. He is very restrained in the Sanha sect, and he has just joined the Sanha sect for such a short time, so no one can form a life and death feud. Then start checking from his way back. The rain started in the afternoon, pattering and drizzling. As it rained, there were fewer pedestrians on the street. "Lao Ho, don't go to Chunshao Tower recently, and don't drink anymore." Wang Zhe looked at Ho Zhu's poor complexion and used the qi-looking technique. He saw that the white qi on his head was weak, mixed with a little gray, which was a sign of his weak body and the possibility of illness. "Why did you suddenly say that?" Ho Zhu was quite puzzled. "I see your complexion is not good. Have you been feeling weak and a bit chilly these past few days?" "Oh, how do you know?" Old Ho was taken aback. His body has indeed been feeling unwell these past few days, and his symptoms are the same as what Wang Zhe said. "It's all written on my face. Hurry up and find a doctor to take a look. If my body doesn't work, I won't be able to go to Chunshao Tower to investigate." Watching Wang Zhe's solemn expression, Old Ho was frightened and hurriedly went to find the doctor to prescribe some medicine. But in just 2 days, Lao Ho's face improved a bit. Wang Zhe used the Wangqi technique to look at the qi on his head, and the gray spots had disappeared, indicating that his body had recovered to health. On that day, the Yamen received a report that a person had died in a village outside the county town. Constable Xu Xiao took Wang Zhe and Lao Ho to the scene, at a house in a mountain village outside the city. The deceased were 2 people, appearing to be husband and wife, lying on the ground, covering their throats, staring with fear on their faces, and 2 pools of blood on the ground. Both of them have wounds in their throats, just like Huang Hengyan's wounds. They all know one of them, who went to the Yamen a few days ago to file a complaint. He is the man whose child was killed by Huang Hengyan riding a horse. That person hasn't left yet. Why did he kill these 2 people? Old Ho was surprised. "No, it's not the same person. The wound is different." Xu Xiao shook her head. Wang Zhe looked at the 2 corpses on the ground, expressionless and with a cold gaze. "The body needs to be taken back and handed over to the grave for autopsy." They had just returned to the city when someone came to report the incident, and someone in the village died. The deceased were 2 people in their 40s, with the same wounds and cause of death. However, the difference was that there were still unhealed wounds on their faces and bodies, which seemed to have been whipped. These 2 people are the parents of the girl who was snatched away by Huang Gongzi a few days ago. Their injuries should have been from Huang Gongzi's beating, the Old Ho whispered in Wang Zhe's ear. 4 people died from the same cause. The county magistrate who received the news had a gloomy and terrifying expression on his face. "Rampage, it's too rampant, it's simply beyond our control." "Hey, who are you calling the county magistrate cursing?" In the room not far away, the old marquis was holding melon seeds in his hand, nibbling on them while whispering to Wang Zhe. Who did these 2 cases, he wouldn't know. Wang Zhe just smiled. Why are you so absent-minded today? You have something on your mind and miss the girl. The old marquis noticed that Wang Zhe was having some abnormalities today. No, Wang Zhe smiled and shook his head. Come to my house for a drink later, Laoye patted his shoulder. After finishing his job, Hou Zhu pulled Wang Zhe to his own home. Hou Zhu was also alone, and had a wife who died in an accident earlier. Since then, he has not remarried, so he often goes to the Spring Lantern Tower. A few small dishes, a pot of turbid wine. Those 4 people today were killed by Mr. Huang's men. Hou Zhu drank a bowl of wine. I also guessed, they are innocent. Wang Zhe picked up his bowl and took a sip. The wine tasted 7 parts spicy and 3 parts bitter. This is because he killed his son himself, and he is trying to vent his anger while also trying to frame a crime. That old thing is so damn. Of course, it's innocent. We can all imagine it. The county magistrate and county magistrate wouldn't have thought of it. Not only the 4 of them, but also 6 people died in Mr. Huang's mansion, including caretakers, maids, and cooks. This is Mr. Huang killing someone to bury his son. What? Wang Zhe's face was shocked upon hearing this. He clenched his fist, then let go, picked up his wine bowl, and drank another one. I think this could also be that Mr. Huang had a plan. If the hero who eradicated violence and brought peace did not leave, but was still in Guobei County or nearby, what would his reaction be if he heard this news? Kill back and kill Huang Shen, said Wang Zhe. He actually had this idea in just a moment. That's a trick. Mr. Huang is an old fox. He must have set up a trap and waited for him. If it were me, I would leave quickly. Alas, in this world, people's lives are as cheap as ants. The old marquis sighed. Wang Zhe drank silently. Laoye's words are reasonable. In this world, evil people cannot be killed completely, and one should not rush for a moment. After leaving the old marquis and returning home, Wang Zhe burned 3 sticks of incense and sprinkled 3 bowls of wine to pay tribute to the innocent souls of the deceased. Then I continued to practice my skills, and the next day I continued to work as usual. He has no impulsiveness, after all, he doesn't have enough confidence now, and the Huang family's family business for several generations is still there, so he can't run for a moment. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Ghost-Faced Badger. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Ghost-Faced Badger. 7 days later, Huang Henyan was buried, and all the influential figures from Guobei County went. How could a disaster die and still be so magnificent? The old marquis looked down upon it. Old marquis, speak with caution. Wang Zhe smiled. With Huang Henyan's burial, this matter seems to have come to an end here. The 10-day deadline has arrived, and the county magistrate scolded these people, so the case of Huang Henyan's murder has naturally not been solved. This case seems to have come to an end, and life has returned to its usual calm. Jianmao, doing odd jobs, practicing martial arts, playing and fulfilling. On this day, after Jianmao, a few people followed the constable Xu Xian to the front of the colonel. The county captain, who was quite overweight, had a gloomy and watery face. A constable and 7 constables followed the county magistrate on horseback out of the city and walked for more than 10 miles. They were tired and thirsty, and almost noon they arrived at a small mountain village. 2 people had been waiting at the entrance of the village to see them arrive. They quickly approached the county captain and said a few words to help him lead his horse. Marquis, what's wrong with the county captain today? Wang Zhe whispered. How do I know, but judging from his expression, we might be busy, said the old Ho. A young villager led the way in front, the county magistrate in front, and a few of them followed behind, entering the mountains along the winding mountain road. The mountains are lush with trees, birds chirping on the trees, clear streams flowing in the mountains, and everywhere is full of vitality. After a while, they stopped in front of a cemetery. What is this? Everyone present was stunned. The grave in front of them was uncovered, the coffin boards were lifted, and the bodies inside were also missing. Digging someone else's ancestral grave, what a great deal of hatred. The county captain's expression was even more torn. Check it out, find out who did it, I'm going to peel his skin, he roared. Upon hearing this, the nearby constable Xu Xian immediately assigned a task to the group of constables to search for clues and make sure to quickly locate the tomb robbers and the lost corpses. Wang Zhe and Laoye teamed up and started searching near the tomb. Old Marquis, what kind of person is buried in the tomb? The colonel is so angry. Who else can there be, colonel's father? You forget that his father passed away last month, and we even managed to raise some money, whispered the old Ho. No wonder you're so angry, but this thing is a bit strange. Most tomb raiders steal treasures from tombs and won't touch the bodies inside the coffins. So where did the bodies inside the coffins go? Look, this time it's a big deal and we can't find the tomb robbers. Let's not think about going back. We can't even find a scapegoat. Sai, what are you doing? I saw Wang Zhe leave the mountain path and squat on the ground in the wild grass, looking at a footprint in the grass. Another footprint appeared in front of him. There is a problem with this footprint. Isn't it just footprints? What problem can there be? This should be a trace left by official boots. Who in the mountain village would wear official boots? Are you sure? Old Ho looked at the younger generation in front of him in confusion. 8 or 9 never leave 10. Wang Zhe nodded. This is the knowledge and ability he gained after learning tracking techniques. He once learned tracking skills after catching a thief who had previously worked as a constable in other counties. Tracking techniques can track footprints, breath, and other traces by identifying and analyzing them. He had just seen the fallen grass and thought that someone might have passed by. He saw footprints on the ground and analyzed their size and shape to determine that they were likely left by official boots. Also, his nose twitched slightly. Ho, have you smelled any strange smell? What's the smell? Old Ho looked bewildered. Stinky smell, a faint putrid odor, resembling rotten meat. It's a corpse, the lost body once passed through here. Wang Zhe followed his footsteps all the way forward, with Laoye following behind. After crossing the mountain ridge and arriving at the back of the mountain, Wang Zhe suddenly stopped in a valley. What did you find, kid? Old Ho gasped heavily. He felt as if the younger generation in front of him had suddenly changed. Wang Zhe looked at a pool of blood and some fur underground and squatted down to take a closer look. Continuing forward along the footprints, the stench grew stronger and stronger. Wang Zhe looked ahead, and under the cover of trees and weeds on the back of the mountain, he could vaguely see a cave. Wang Zhe closed his eyes slightly and looked at the old marquis using the method of looking at the air. He saw black air floating out of the black hole. There's something inside. Just then, a shout suddenly came from the mountain above. What kind of thing? Ah, a scream of agony. Monsters. Sand, 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 a sound came from the forest, as if something was running in this direction. Wang Zhe stared at the swaying weeds in the forest, but no one was seen. He quickly pulled out his waist knife, and the old marquis beside him also pulled out his knife. Ah Zhe, what did I not see? Old Ho was very nervous. I don't know what it is, it's not human anyway. Wang Zhe had already seen a black aura approaching them in the Shunlin forest using the method of looking at qi, with an extremely fast speed and a hint of blood in the black aura. What? Old Ho's face changed greatly after hearing this. Ah Zhe, don't fight so hard later. It's important to save your life. Old Ho was so scared that he was trembling and didn't forget to remind Wang Zhe. Well, Wang Zhe nodded and stared at the forest ahead, adjusting his breathing slightly. Coming. He let out a low growl. Shua, a black figure emerged from the grass, covered in blue and black, with a head like a dog, a face like a ghost, palms like human feet, sharp claws, and a fishy smell. Seeing the two of them blocking the way, they opened their mouths and exposed their fangs, making a strange roar. What is this thing? Old Ho was stunned for a moment. In that moment, the whole person seemed to have lost their soul and stood there in a daze. That monster jumps up and bites with its mouth open. That's it, Lao Ho has already closed his eyes. Get out of here. Wang Zhe pushed him away. With a stream of light and blood splattering, the monster suddenly disappeared into the forest. Lao Ho collapsed to the ground, hissing, exhaling heavily, clearly frightened. Wang Zhe stared at the direction of the cave with his knife, and the black aura inside was no worse than that monster just now. At this moment, the ancient book reappeared and appeared in front of Wang Zhe, shining brightly. Opening a blank page, a few lines of words appeared again. Ghost-faced badger, a spirit monster in the mountains, likes to eat human flesh, kills 8 people, eats 5 people. It should be executed. Reward, spirit monster inner pill. He had an extra round pearl the size of peanuts in his hand, which was a bit refreshing. Is it so easy to die? Wang Zhe turned his head and glanced at the mountains and forests. At this moment, Wang Zhe realized that not only did he kill the villains, but he also gained from killing the spirits in the mountains. In this way, the road becomes wider. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. One cut. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 One cut. What about the monster? Ho Zhu, who had come to his senses, looked around and found that the monster was missing. Don't stay here, hurry up and leave. Maybe that monster will come back again. He quickly dragged Wang Zhe away. The two of them went up the mountain, and on the other side of the mountain, they saw 3 captors lying on the ground, howling. They were scratched by the monster just now, and their wounds had turned black and blue. In the current situation, it is certain that we cannot continue to search for tomb robbers on the mountain. A few people quickly carried the injured down the mountain and returned to the village. Waste, a bunch of useless waste. The tomb robber was not caught and injured several constables. The angry county captain cursed at them. Qi returned to Qi, and people couldn't let it go. They immediately sent the injured constable back to the city to seek medical treatment. When they returned to Guobei County, those people were not only injured, but also had a large area of skin near the wound that turned pitch black. The blood and water flowing out were all black, and their faces also showed an ominous blue color. Wang Zhe secretly looked at these 3 people with the technique of looking at Qi, and saw that the wisp of white Qi on their heads had completely turned gray, different from the gray dots when Lao Ho was sick. He immediately realized that these few people were afraid that their lives would be in danger. The doctor looked at their wounds and his face became very serious. He quickly asked how they were injured. When he heard Wang Zhe describe the appearance of the ghost-faced badger, his eyebrows furrowed, he sighed, and shook his head. Hey, I can't cure their injury. As the fisherman said, the one you've encountered should be the ghost-faced badger, who specializes in eating corpses from tombs in the mountains. If it swallows its body for a long time, it will produce corpse poison on its body. To relieve this poison, it needs to grind its teeth into powder. I can only mix some medicinal herbs now to delay the onset of toxicity as much as possible. As for how long it can be delayed, it depends on their nature, said the doctor. When sending these 3 constables home, their family members were very worried about their appearance and even cried on the spot. When people go out, they're fine. How come when they come back, they're like this? Fortunately, you gave me a push, otherwise I would have to be like them too. Old Ho sighed. Ah Zhe, how do you think we can catch that monster? What, you want to save someone? When you saw that monster in the mountain village, you were so scared that your legs were weak. I was unprepared for a moment, and that monster was indeed frightening. As soon as I saw its appearance, my head buzzed and I said, "Hey, don't you feel that way?" "No, isn't it just a badger? It's just a bit shabby." Wang Zhe shook his head. He was not really afraid at the time, almost instinctively pulling out his sword. Long-term practice had become an instinct, and then he died with a single blow. "Colleague, for so many years, can't we just face death without saving ourselves?" said the old marquis. "Whether it's a colleague who has been together for 2 years, there is still some emotional connection. Why don't we go to that mountain village and ask the villagers?" Wang Zhe said. He knew that the ghost-faced badger had been killed, and the body should still be in the mountains and forests. "Just go and retrieve it now." "Okay, let's go." The two of them said back to the yamen and went to the mountain village. After all this fuss, it was already afternoon when the two of them arrived at the mountain village. "The monster that eats corpses, you should be talking about a ghost-faced badger." The villagers seemed to think of something terrifying upon hearing the two of them, with a frightened expression on their faces. "That is a monster that feeds on corpses. It not only eats corpses, but also humans. It is said that it flies like a gust of wind in the mountains and forests, looks like a ghost, and when it sees it, it will be scared out of its soul. If caught or bitten, it will be covered in black and blue and bleed to death." "Yes, yes, yes, that's it." The old Ho nodded beside him. "It sounds so terrifying. How could I die with just one blow? Is it that the person I killed was just a miner?" Wang Zhe felt a little puzzled in his heart. "So how should we catch it?" After hearing about the intention of Lao Ho and his companions, Liaozhai expressed that he would ask the villagers to help. After all, they are also afraid of such a monster on the mountain. In recent years, a few people have inexplicably disappeared on the mountain, neither alive nor dead. They thought they were eaten by wolves, but now they think they might have been eaten by that ghost-faced badger. Ghost-faced badgers are afraid of fire and sunlight, and use ancient tombs as their nests. They discussed and, taking advantage of the darkness, went to the mountain to take a look. There were several relatively strong men following them, holding torches and sticks in their hands. After climbing the mountain and reaching the back, Wang Zhe quickly found the body of the ghost-faced badger, by following the bloodstains in the wild grass in the mountain. But this body is already incomplete, and its flesh and blood have been eaten away by something. Is this what's going on? Old Ho was stunned at the sight. Wang Zhe quickly applied his Qi-gazing technique to look at the cave in the forest, and saw that the black air floating out of it was more intense than what he had seen before leaving. Is that really something inside? Well, what's going on with these people? He caught a glimpse of blood shining between the eyebrows of the people who were going up the mountain with them, and the white air on their heads was also tinged with blood. Anyway, they are saved. Let's go back quickly, right, said the old Ho. He felt that the forest was gloomy and furry all over, and he didn't want to stay here for a moment. Returning to the mountain village, Wang Zhe found that there were other people in the village with blood shining from their heads, which was not a good sign. He tapped and inquired, and found out that those few people were not from the same family. What's going on in this mountain village? Plague, earthquake, banditry, or maybe it's related to the black aura he saw in the back mountain. Wang Zhe thought of the black aura he saw in the cave behind the mountain. Wang Zhe couldn't be sure, but he still found Liaozhai in the village and specifically reminded him. Remind him to be vigilant recently and report any suspicious incidents to the authorities in a timely manner. Isn't that tomb raider already captured? Liaozhai was very puzzled after hearing Wang Zhe's words. That kind of mountain monster may not be the only one, there may be something else in the mountain. Then the two of them returned to the county town with the incomplete body of the ghost-faced badger. When they returned, it was already dark and their identities were revealed before they could enter the city. They first went to the doctor, took off the teeth of the ghost-faced badger, ground them into powder, and went to the constable's house closest to the clinic to drink it with warm water. After a while, the constable began to vomit, and the vomit was extremely foul-smelling. The whole room was filled with a pungent smell. After another round of incense, Wang Zhe used his qi-looking technique to see that the ominous black and blue color on his face had dissipated for the most part, indicating that he had no worries about his life. I just breathed a slight sigh of relief. It seems that the doctor's method is really useful. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Easy Muscle Wash Marrow. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Easy Muscle Wash Marrow. After taking the antidote, the injured constables all vomited incessantly, with a foul odor all over the room. As the blackness on their faces faded, their lives were saved. These colleagues and their families were naturally very grateful to Wang Zhe and Hou Zhu, giving them some silver as a gesture of gratitude, but they were all rejected by the old marquis. When he returned, old Hou was so happy that he couldn't even close his mouth. Having known old Hou for so long, Wang Zhe saw him smile so happily for the first time, even happier than coming back from the Spring Lantern Tower. If it weren't for being too late, Lao Hou would definitely have invited him to drink again. After returning home and having a meal, Wang Zhe took out the strange inner pill and held it in his hand. After taking this inner pill, you should be able to improve your skills, right? After taking the inner pill, I initially felt a slight coolness in my abdomen and gradually felt a little bloated. Wang Zhe realized that this might be the aura emanating from Niden, so he began to practice Luohangong in the distance, starting from the first move, one after another. Double palm pushing clouds, picking flowers and dragging leaves, immortal apes picking fruits, double peaks inserting clouds, pouring seas and mountains. The cool air in the abdomen is quickly absorbed and then turns into thin streams flowing through the limbs and bones. The spiritual power contained in the inner alchemy was absorbed by him and transformed into true qi within his body. At first it was just a wisp, but as he continued to practice, his true energy increased. Continuously flowing along the meridians within the body, breaking through the acupoints all the way, like a river. When encountering a blockage, at first it only flows through, and then as the number increases, it directly reopens the blockage. This is to open up the meridians in his body. Wang Zhe immersed himself in it and gradually entered the realm of selflessness. It was already late at night when he fully absorbed the spiritual power in that inner pill. He felt warm all over, full of energy, and full of strength, but his body was a bit sticky with a faint sour smell. Is this Jing Shi Marrow? This inner pill may be worth a year of hard work. He quickly took a cold shower with water, and then felt a faint difference in his whole body. Not to mention being comfortable all over, seeing things doesn't seem much clearer than before. After less than 2 hours, the sky lit up. In the morning, go to the street to have breakfast. A bowl of congee and some steamed cakes are free of pollution, additives and natural taste. After breakfast, the yamen nodded and started a new day. Seeing the old marquis carrying the incomplete body of the ghost-faced badger to the yamen, the officers and constables of the yamen all praised him. Hou Zhu's face was full of joy, as if he had never been so beautiful in his life. Sheriff Xu Xian praised the two of them and also wanted to take away the incomplete body of the ghost-faced badger. He patted his chest and said he would ask the county captain for their help. After a while, they saw the catcher Xu Xiaola happily returning, looking very happy. With a height of over 8 feet, he walked with a gentle and imposing demeanor. That guy is really shameless. He took the credit for catching the ghost-faced badger. Hou Zhu said angrily while patrolling the street. Isn't this normal? The credit belongs to the boss, and the fault belongs to the subordinates. Rewards are given to them, and we bear the blame. Wang Zhe smiled and said, this was also the case when I was in the company before. Although Xu Xiao looks tall and handsome, he is not as good as a child when it comes to handling affairs. But the captain also rewarded him with 5 taels of silver, which was enough to go to Chunshao Tower twice. He didn't give us any. Hou Zhu said. That's a bit excessive, Wang Zhe narrowed his eyes slightly. The two were patrolling the street when suddenly a woman ran to them in a panic. "Two captors, my daughter is missing." "Don't worry, let's talk slowly about what's going on." Originally, this woman and her husband woke up this morning and found that their daughter was not in the house, and there was no one in the yard. The gate was still closed, and the two of them were frightened. Her husband was still searching for his daughter's whereabouts everywhere, so she came to report to the authorities. Wang Zhe and Lao Ho hurriedly arrived at the woman's house and walked around. "Someone came and stole your daughter," Wang Zhe said. He found unfamiliar footprints in the soil under the courtyard wall, traces left by climbing over the wall, and a faint aroma in the room. "Did you wake up later than usual this morning and feel a bit dizzy?" "Yes, yes." The woman nodded. "It's Mixiang. At night, someone used Mixiang to confuse them and then stole their daughter. I begged the two captors to save my daughter." The woman cried and knelt down on the ground. "Get up first, get up quickly." Wang Zhe arrived at the alley outside and followed the footsteps stained with soil, but after a short distance, the footprints broke. With a 5-year-old child, I don't understand likeness skills when I look at those footprints. The city gate has already closed in the late night and I can't leave the city. Wang Zhe analyzed secretly. The old lord over there is also asking the woman if she has seen any suspicious people in the past 2 days. But one of her neighbors woke up and said they saw a stranger wandering around the alley in the past 2 days. After inquiring about their general appearance, the two of them split up and went back to the yamen to seek help. Wang Zhe continued to search and asked the residents in the alley. A family said that the dog in the courtyard suddenly barked last night. That's the direction. When Wang Zhe passed by an alley, a person in the alley saw him quickly turn around and walk back. "Stop!" Wang Zhichong shouted at the person. The person started running and didn't take a few steps before feeling a gust of wind behind them. One hand grabbed onto his shoulder, causing a sharp pain in his shoulder. His physical strength suddenly dissipated and he knelt down with a thud. "Captain, spare your life. Why did you catch me? What are you running for?" Wang Zhe looked at his appearance, which was very similar to the neighbor who lost her child. "Let's go, follow me back to the yamen." As soon as the old marquis led the people out, he encountered Wang pressing them back to the yamen. "Ah Zhe, why did you catch someone so quickly?" "I happened to meet him on the street, looking at him with a sly expression and not like a good person, so I caught him," Wang Zhe said with a smile. "The person was arrested and imprisoned. The ancient book reappeared before my eyes. Liaozhai, stealing 4 times, exchanging 16 or 3 taels of silver, stealing and kidnapping children twice, will be punished. Reward 20 taels of silver. This is still a habitual offender. 20 taels of silver is not bad, it can improve his life a bit," Wang Zhe thought to himself. The rewards of yin-yang impermanence are closely related to the person caught. If there are many evil deeds, the rewards will be more. Some techniques have also been practiced by the thieves who have been caught or killed. In the past 2 years, those who have caught thieves, and the like are mostly rewarded with some silver coins. At first, the iron cloth shirt he practiced was a horizontal skill, which required some medicine to work with the muscles and bones. His appetite also increased significantly, and he didn't save much silver money. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. A Blood Cloud. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. A Blood Cloud. After Liaozhai was arrested in the prison, he came up for questioning, looked suspicious, and then gave a punishment greeting. Soon, he recruited everything. The child was stolen by him and is still hidden in the cellar, unable to be sold. At the same time, he has also revealed an important message. There is a group of people outside Guobei City selling children, but they only want girls. After asking about the news, the 8-foot-tall constable Xu Xian immediately rushed to Li Afu's house and found the cellar according to Li Afu's instructions. Opening the cover outside, there was indeed a 6 or 7-year-old girl in the cellar. She was tied with a rope, stuffed with rags in her mouth, and her face was filled with fear, very pitiful. They sent the child home, and the family held the child, expressing their gratitude. By the way, Xu Xian gave a little thank you money and smiled as he took it into his pocket. How shameless this guy is! Ho Zhu said angrily upon seeing this. Wang Zhe smiled. Although this guy is very annoying, it's not necessarily a good thing for him to like to show off so much. After returning to the Yamen, they reported the trafficking of children outside the city. Upon hearing this, the county captain personally led people out of the city and arrived outside the dilapidated mountain god temple. As a result, it was empty there, not to mention people, not even a bird, and nothing was caught. Returning to the city and receiving 20 taels of silver, Wang Zhe naturally wanted to invite the old marquis to drink. I ordered a few alcoholic dishes, 2 hard dishes, a pot of lamb, kept cooking geese, and a tooth-beating ceremony. You're not young anymore, you need to find someone to start a family. If you're interested in any girl, I'll go help you propose a marriage. After drinking 2 bowls of wine, Ho Zhu began to care about Wang Zhe's life affairs. What's so urgent? Wang Zhe smiled and said, he's not yet 20 years old. It's good to be alone now, carefree, and not to mention that I have the strange book Yin Yang Impermanence on me, which is a big secret that cannot be revealed to others. Not in a hurry. When I was your age, my father had already started planning my marriage, and later I met him. Talking about the past, Ho Zhu's face suddenly showed a hint of bitterness, and he picked up a wine bowl and drank it all in one gulp. When he left the tavern, Ho Zhu was already drunk and stumbling along the way. Wang Zhe escorted him back home. The next day, I began my familiar life as a constable, patrolling the streets, listening to my colleagues boasting and gossiping, and going to the tavern to have some drinks. During this period, Wang Zhe insinuated and inquired about Mr. Huang's news, only to find out that he had invited 2 more experts. No one knew exactly how tall they were. So he decided to wait a little longer. A peaceful life was interrupted within a few days. On a sunny day, a person panicked and entered the county government in the morning, reporting that there had been an accident in their village and many people had died. The county captain personally took people to investigate the case, as the incident occurred in his hometown. Before entering the mountain village, Wang Zhe felt a faint smell of blood in the blowing wind. He closed his eyes slightly and used the Wanqi technique to look over the mountain village. He saw a patch of blood, like a cloud of blood enveloping the village. Entering the village, they arrived at a household where the accident had occurred. The county captain came out quickly after entering, his face very ugly, his body trembling slightly. I don't know if he was angry. 2 constables who went and turned pale when they came out, leaning against the wall and spitting out. What's going on? Is it so serious? After Wang Zhe entered, he was also momentarily stunned. He saw the bed, walls, table, and the whole room filled with blood, as well as fragments of flesh, bones, and organs, as if it were a slaughterhouse. What's even more terrifying is that most of the flesh and blood of these corpses have disappeared, as if they were eaten by something based on the situation at the scene. There are blood-colored footprints on the ground, which are obviously larger than the soles of ordinary people. I visited 3 households in a row, and it was the same. The things that Wang Zhe was worried about when he left last time have become a reality. This village encountered something very terrifying, and Wang Zhe immediately thought of the black aura he saw in the back mountain. Could it be that thing that did it? Watching what happened in his hometown, the county captain's face was very ugly. He is also a somewhat knowledgeable person, and upon seeing the situation at the scene, one can guess that it is highly likely that some monster has entered the mountain village. Unexpectedly, all 4 households were killed overnight, and the whole village was in great panic, afraid that the next one would be themselves. Some even left the mountain village but sought refuge with relatives. The clues left at the scene were also very obvious, with blood-stained footprints leading to the mountains, but no one dared to pursue them. Wang Zhe used the qi-looking technique in the mountain village to look into the mountains, and could see a black gas floating out of the forest, like a smoke from a kitchen, much stronger than the last time he saw it. The county captain talked to the elders in the village alone for a long time, and after dealing with the bodies of the 4 households, he left with a group of captains, leaving quickly, hastily, and eagerly. They are also afraid of death. Ah Zhe, what did you say killed those people? The monsters in the mountains. I know, what kind of monster? How do I know? Mandrills, ghosts, zombies. Just now in the room of the mountain village, he smelled a faint fishy smell, as if it had been the smell of meat rotting for many days. When searching for the body of the missing county captain's father on the mountain that day, he had also tasted a similar smell. After returning to the county government office, the county captain immediately went to discuss this matter with the county magistrate. It was his hometown, his parents and fellow villagers, and he couldn't let it go. If there is no way to solve it in Guobei County, he plans to seek help in Jinhua City. Unfortunately, Huang Zhe happened to be there too. After hearing about this, he said that there happened to be 2 experts at home, and perhaps they would have a solution. The county captain was overjoyed upon hearing this. The next day, early in the morning, the county captain led a group of captains to the village. The difference is that this time there are 2 people with them, riding horses and looking at their 30s. A tall figure with a beard, thick eyebrows and big eyes, a heavy sword behind his back, and a medium-sized figure with a white face and a few strands of beard. Ah Zhe, what are these 2 people? Laoye asked in a low voice. I don't know. Wang Zhe shook his head and gestured for him to speak less. When he secretly looked at these 2 people with the technique of looking at qi, he saw a different kind of qi in them. The air on the tall person's body was thick and condensed, and the ordinary person's air was like a wisp of white smoke, like a thread. His air was like a pillar of smoke, twisted into a hemp rope by many threads. The other person's aura was much thicker and more condensed than the average person, mixed with a hint of blue. At the same time, these 2 people still have blood on their bodies, not the kind of bloody disaster between their eyebrows. On their bodies, this is a sign of killing evil, and the thicker the blood, the heavier the killing. These 2 people have killed a lot, and Wang Zhe also guessed that they should be the experts invited by Huang Zhe. Those 2 households may have been killed by them. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Nuomi Zombie. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Nuomi Zombie. Master, don't you know what their abilities are? You need to pay close attention later. Wang Zhe observed the 2 people secretly. Everyone arrived at the village, and the 2 experts invited by Huang Zhe immediately inspected the scene. After some discussion, they went to find the county captain. They wanted to enter the mountain and hoped that the county captain could dispatch a constable to help. Not long after, several carriages also entered the mountain village. The carriage was filled with wine jars, several large nets, and a torch tied with oil felt, all of which they had prepared for Huang Zhe. In addition, they also bought 2 sheep from the village and prepared to take them up the mountain together. I heard that they were going up the mountain to search for the monster that killed the villagers, but these constables showed great resistance. What are you afraid of, cowards? One by one. It is our duty to protect the safety of the area. Constable Xu Xian spoke passionately and with righteous words. But it's useless, everyone still doesn't want to go into the mountain. Entering the mountain, each person has 50 taels of silver. The white-faced man only said one sentence, and the eyes of these constables lit up. Money and silk move people's hearts, 50 taels, which can match their salaries for several years. The 2 of us are walking at the front. If you encounter a monster, you can run at any time. This sentence more or less dispelled some people's concerns. If anyone doesn't go, they'll take off their clothes when they go back, said the county captain coldly. All threats and inducements are here. So these constables followed the two up the mountain, each carrying a wine jar on his back. Xu Xian held a steel knife and followed the two men with a majestic presence. Wang Zhe secretly handed a bag of rice to Laoye. What is this? Glutinous rice, still raw, what are you doing with this? Laoye opened it and was stunned. I heard this thing can ward off evil spirits. If it works, it won't sink when carried around. What kind of monster did you say the killer was? I don't know, Wang Zhe shook his head. Blood footprints were left on the scene, and there were scratches on the walls with nails. What is most likely, a zombie? As for whether this glutinous rice is effective for zombies, he doesn't know. What if it works? I just don't know if those two guys are capable, but don't get these people involved. He looked up at the two people walking ahead. What's inside the wine jar we're carrying? Hou Zhu pointed behind his back. It should be hot oil, said Wang Zhe. Although it was sealed outside, Wang Zhe could still smell a faint smell of burning oil. It seems that those two people have already guessed what the killer monster is and thought of ways to deal with it. I just don't know why they need to care about this matter. Eliminating demons and guarding the way. It's definitely not that noble, probably you can get some benefits from that monster. How do I feel like the mountains and forests are gloomy. Psychological effects. Hey, I said to be careful of the location later and run away immediately if you feel something is wrong. It's not embarrassing, it's important to save your life, said the old Ho in a low voice. Well, Wang Zhe nodded. As he walked, he turned around to take a look. What are you looking at? Hou Zhu also turned around. Our constable. Wang Zhe pouted. Just now, Xu Xian was walking ahead with a majestic demeanor, and with a very brave appearance. He unexpectedly arrived at the back of the team at some point. When did this guy run to the back? After the county lieutenant returned, the constable quietly fell behind. I think he was going to make the queen for us, said Wang Zhe. His five senses are very sensitive now, and he is very attentive to the movements around him. He naturally saw the little movements of Xu Xian just now. This scumbag, bah! Hou Zhu spat. The two experts were leading the way, occasionally stopping to look at their feet and surroundings. They clearly found the path of the zombies' movement. The places where zombies pass by have left footprints, and the plants and trees have withered, which is a manifestation of being eroded by corpse venom. Don't touch it, stay away. Seeing old Ho curiously looking at a green and black scratch on a tree trunk, Wang Zhe tugged at him. Keep an eye on those two people, I always feel like they're not well-intentioned. Wang Zhe pointed to the person in front of him. Laoye nodded. Wang Zhe looked around calmly and quietly took out a few glutinous rice grains, throwing them onto the footprints left by the zombie. In an instant, the grains turned green-black, as if they had been roasted. It's really useful. They climbed over the mountain and descended to the valley between the two mountains. They continued to deepen along the valley and walked a long distance. At first, you could still hear some bird calls, but gradually you couldn't hear any bird calls or insect calls. Wang Zhe saw a strong black aura emanating from a forest in the distance. The two people walking in front stopped and signaled for everyone behind to stop. The tall man took out a dagger and cut a hole in the bodies of the two goats, causing blood to flow out. He then drove the two goats towards the direction of the cave. Bah! The goat let out a painful and uneasy cry. After approaching the cave, a black shadow suddenly rushed out and caught the two goats inside, without even seeing what they looked like. After a moment, there was no movement. The constables who saw this scene were all dumbfounded. Monsters! I don't know who shouted, but then they unconsciously retreated. They have witnessed the miserable situation of those few households in the mountain village and do not want themselves to become like that. Don't be afraid, it's afraid of sunlight and flames, and doesn't dare to come out during the day," said the tall man. "Ah Zhe, is what he said true?" The old Ho's face also turned very pale. "Even if it's true, look at this day, look around us, how many rays of sunshine can shine in?" Wang Zhe pointed to the sky, where the clouds covered the sun. He also pointed to the surroundings, where the trees were lush and the distant peaks blocked some of the sunlight. They were in the shadow of the mountains. "Do you remember the way you came? Remember. If there is a problem later, run away immediately and don't care about anyone," Wang Zhe warned. "And you?" Old Ho couldn't help but ask after hearing this. "Don't worry, I will definitely run faster than you." Wang Zhe grinned. At this moment, the tall man asked everyone to take off the wine jar on their backs and gather together. He raised his hand and threw it towards the direction of the cave. With a loud bang, the wine jar shattered, and then he threw a torch over it. With a loud roar, the flames surged and instantly ignited the surrounding vegetation. The white-faced man took out a piece of yellow paper from his pocket, muttered words, and threw it away. The yellow paper burned in mid-air, and then a wind blew in the forest, blowing flames straight towards the cave. I vaguely heard roars coming from the cave. The flames were swept into the cave by the wind, and the flames in the forest continued to intensify. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Sweeping shadow from the floating light and sealing throat with one sword. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Sweeping shadow from the floating light and sealing throat with one sword, we won't be burned to death by this fire, will we? Lao Ho looked at the growing fire with concern. Wang Zhe looked around at the constable colleagues with the technique of looking at qi, his face flushed with blood. The blood in the wisp of white qi above his head became increasingly thick, almost turning into blood. Something's going to happen. Lao Ho, quickly remind them to be careful and ready to run at any time, Wang Zhe whispered. The old marquis immediately went to remind the constables and then returned to Wang Zhe's side. "Ah Zhe, let's go." Wang Zhe turned around and saw that by then, most of the valley was completely shrouded in shadows, with no sunlight shining on it. The mountains and forests behind them were quiet, and no birds or insects could be heard chirping. "Hey, where's Captain Zhu? That 8-foot-tall man is actually missing. That guy must have run away early." Old Ho gritted his teeth and said. The ground shook faintly and roared, suddenly the soil burst open, and a black shadow emerged from the ground. In just an instant, the head of the recent constable exploded, with flesh and blood flying everywhere. "Run!" Wang Zhe shouted, and the old marquis turned around and ran. The other constables were stunned for a moment and immediately ran away. The strong man drew his sword from behind and slashed the zombie with one strike. Then, the white-faced man threw several talismans onto the zombie, turning it into flames and instantly igniting it. The black air on the zombies rolled and the flames quickly dimmed, rushing towards the nearby captors who had not yet run far, instantly tearing their bodies apart and inhaling blood into their bodies. 1, 2, several constables screamed and scattered, panicking as some even fled deeper into the valley. The sword-wielding man jumped lightly and came behind the zombie. He swung his sword out, but was blocked by one arm of the zombie. With tremendous force, he swept him away. Why is this zombie so powerful? I must have swallowed some treasure. At this point, Wang Zhe had already run a distance and arrived at a relatively high place. He stopped and hid in the dark, watching the two people below fight against the zombie. A tall man uses a sword, while a white-faced man uses talismans. The zombie was shrouded in a black aura all over its body, unable to see what it looked like, but it was very tall, even half a head higher than the sword-wielding man who was over 8 feet tall. So there are still people in this world who are good at talismans. Can this be considered Taoism? Wang Zhe said to himself. The white-faced man took out a talisman with a very painful expression and threw it away. The talisman turned into a stream of light, breaking through the black energy on the zombie's body and sticking it to its forehead. The zombie was immediately immobilized. That talisman is really mysterious. It can immobilize zombies, I wonder if it can also immobilize people. Wang Zhe narrowed his eyes slightly when he saw this. Seeing the zombie pinned down, the sword-wielding man stepped forward and slashed it on the neck with a click. The zombie's neck broke, but its head did not fall and hung down on its body. Then a black breath rushed out from his neck. Unfortunately, this fourth-grade spiritual talisman, the white-faced man said with great heartache. Let's take the inner pill first. It seems that this cultivation has an inner pill. One inner pill is enough to exchange for 24th-grade spiritual talismans, said the sword-wielding man. He approached the zombie with a sword and slashed open its belly, trying to find that inner elixir. Unexpectedly, the zombie's stomach suddenly exploded, and black air and blood flew out together. He quickly jumped up, like a frightened bird. The white-faced man on the side also retreated urgently. The black aura enveloped the zombie, and the talisman attached to his forehead was infected by the black aura, causing the spiritual light on it to quickly dim. Not good, I'm poisoned. The man holding the sword felt a sharp pain in his left arm. When he looked down, he found a hole in his clothes. He tore open the clothes and found a small black scar on his left arm, which was rapidly spreading. The white-faced man's face turned slightly blue, and he had just inhaled a bit of corpse gas. Let's go. It's a pity to leave now, said the white-faced man. Both of these people took out the pills from their bodies and took them. At this moment, the zombie slowly lifted its arm. With a flash of sword light, one of the zombie's arms was severed, and another zombie aura burst out from the cut. This zombie is strange. How could it have such a strong zombie aura? At this moment, a constable who had just run the wrong way suddenly realized something was wrong and ran back. He passed by the two people not far away and glanced at them. You come over, the man with the sword called out to him. I won't go. The constable wanted to run, but the man with a sword swept him up like a big bird, grabbed him all at once, and then lifted him up to the zombie covered in black gas. Kill it. I dare not. The constable's face turned pale and trembled with fear. Puff, a sword pierced his shoulder. Ah, he let out a scream. Take a knife, poke it in the stomach, just one go, said the man with the sword. The constable trembled as he approached the zombie with his knife, and with one strike, the corpse's aura dissipated. A ball rushed towards his face, unable to dodge. The constable let out a scream, covered his neck, and fell to the ground. After struggling a few times, he lost his breath and his face quickly rotted. Sand, what movement is coming from the forest? Who? A few dozen steps away, a person peeked in and hid again. Captain Zhu asked me to come and take a look. A voice came from behind the forest. You come over. I dare not, said the person behind the forest. The strong man with the sword took a deep breath and suddenly stood up from the ground. Two ups and downs came into the forest and saw the constable with the sword. Before landing, reach out and grab it. Suddenly, there was a bright light in front of him, as brilliant as a shooting star and as swift as thunder, causing him to lose consciousness in an instant. He felt a chill in his throat as wind poured in. After landing, he quickly reached out to cover his throat, and blood flowed from his fingers. He widened his eyes and looked at the young constable standing in front of him with a frightened expression, holding his sword and pointing it at him. Yes, it's you. It's me, Wang Zhe nodded. Feel surprised. Feel off. Guard. The 8-foot man stumbled a few steps, raised his sword, as if he was about to strike, but his strength had been drained away and his vitality was rapidly flowing away from him. With a thud, he knelt down on the ground, clanging as his heavy iron sword fell, only 3 steps away from Wang Zhe. Divine ancient books appear here, shining with light, flipping open. Sun Yao, killed 30.4 innocent people, wiped out the door once, and injured 80.4 people. His crime is extremely heinous, and he should be executed. He will be awarded the title of Sweeping Shadows from Above. In an instant, there seemed to be a beam of light flying into the body, and a technique imprinted in the mind. In a daze, Wang Zhe saw a flash of light and shadow passing by at an extremely fast speed. Floating light sweeping shadow is a lightness skill. Practicing it at a high depth is like a flash of light and shadow, incredibly fast. For the sake of this martial art, Sun Yao killed a family of 7 and wiped out the door. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Qingjing Jing. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 10 Qingjing Jing, Sun Yao. Seeing Sun Yao leaving but not returning for a long time, the remaining white-faced man couldn't help but have doubts and shouted into the forest, but did not hear a response for a long time. After hesitating for a moment, he turned around and entered the forest to search for Sun Yao, only to see him lying on the ground. Sun Yao, Sun Yao. He called out twice and the other person remained silent. When he turned over, he saw that the other person was holding their throat with one hand and staring at the boss, his face full of fear. What's going on here? He suddenly stood up and looked around with great vigilance, looking a bit panicked. He reached out to take the talisman paper, but saw a light shining in front of him. Before he could see what it was, he felt a chill in his throat. Hurriedly reaching out to cover it, a warm surge of blood surged out. He trembled and pointed at Wang Zhe, his eyes wide open, and his face full of shock. This expression is exactly the same as Sun Yao just now. Yes, it's you. It's me. You. Is deceit right? What can we say about dealing with scumbags like you openly? We can kill you as long as we can. This way of death is cheaper for you. Wang Zhe said. That's great, no need for knives and swords, no need for a fight, it's just a test of acting skills. Wang Zhe did not move forward, he was afraid that the guy who used talismans would still have something to hold the bottom of the box and used. I saw the white-faced man holding his throat with one hand, trying to block the constantly flowing blood, and reaching into his pocket with the other hand, as if looking for something. He took out a bottle, but couldn't hold it and fell to the ground. He lowered his head to pick it up, then collapsed with a thud. Finally, he reached out and grabbed the small porcelain bottle, but couldn't open it. Wei Jian killed 22 innocent people, injured 76 people, destroyed people's innocence 16 times, robbed 3 times, exchanged 10,000 taels of silver, and should be executed. Award the Qingjing Jing. After a stream of light, a Taoist scripture appeared in my mind. Reciting the Qingjing Jing frequently can calm the mind, refine the spirit, and slay the demons in the heart. The 2 corpses on the ground were covered in blood. Neither of them expected that the expert they had been searching for was actually in Guobei County, and had been by their side all day. Wang Zhe searched them for 2 bottles of elixirs, some silver coins, and a few talismans. There's still one left. Wang Zhe looked at the zombies still emitting zombie gas outwards, and the flames not far away were still burning, almost approaching. How should we handle this? He approached cautiously to a certain distance. The zombie remained motionless, and the talisman stuck to its head was already covered in cracks and was about to expire. Wang Zhe scattered all the glutinous rice he brought with him using a hidden weapon technique, landing on the surging corpse gas, making a crackling sound, and quickly turning into coke. This sticky rice can't even tickle this zombie at most. Wang Zhe quickly looked around and his eyes lit up. He saw that there were still several jars of cooking oil that had not been used up. He immediately picked them up and threw them near the zombies, then picked up the bodies of Sun Yao and Wei Jian, threw them over, ran far away, and threw a torch over them. With a loud roar, flames soared into the sky. Wang Zhe turned around and ran away. Behind him, the flames and corpse gas had a special reaction, causing an explosion. The air waves rolled and dust flew, and all the plants and trees within 100 steps were broken and collapsed. Pooh, 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 cough, cough, fortunately, I am far apart. Wang Zhe reached out to sweep away the dust that had fallen on his head. I don't know if he's dead or not. Wang Zhe stared at the burning fire. As he gazed towards the flames, the book Yin Yang Impermanence reappeared in front of him. Opening it, lines of black text appeared on the blank paper. Zombies, with spirit beads in their mouths, die but do not transform, eat Tai Sui, undergo changes, kill and eat 15 people, be killed. Award, 1 inner pill. With a flash of brilliance, a round and smooth inner pill appeared in Wang Zhe's hand. This should be the inner pill that Sun Yao and Wei Renjie have put in a lot of effort to obtain. The two of them exhausted all their means and were about to succeed, but in the end, they gave Wang Zhe a free ride. I have spiritual beads in my mouth and even ate Tai Sui, no wonder it's so amazing. Wang Zhe thought to himself. Sha sha sha, Wang Zhe heard sounds coming from the forest behind him. Who? He shouted. It's me. A head peeked out from behind the nearby forest, looking towards this side. But it was an old marquis who had gone and returned. He was holding a knife, his face slightly turning pale, and his body still trembling. Why are you still here, kid? You're not killing yourself. The old marquis approached and lowered his voice, looking anxiously at the burning flames. Ho, why did you come? Wang Zhe pressed back the knife that had been pulled out a few inches. What are you saying? I climbed over the mountain and found that you hadn't gone back. After waiting for a while, I didn't see you again. I thought you had an accident. Why aren't you running here? The old Ho was very angry. I heard shouts, saw explosions, and then turned back to take a look. Wang Zhe pointed to the blazing flames. What about those two experts? I don't know, maybe he died with that zombie, right? Hurry up and leave. Let me take a look again. What are you looking at? You're not going to die anymore, hurry up and leave. Old Ho dragged Wang Zhe away. You're too curious. Think about how your father told you before he left. Old Ho chattered incessantly along the way. Wang Zhe followed behind him, grinning and feeling warm in his heart. Are you still laughing? In the mountain village, the county captain's face was gloomy and he could drip water. He came with a team of constables to handle the case, but 4 people were missing. In addition, the 2 experts invited by Mr. Huang did not come back. Most likely, there was an accident. How should he explain it to the county magistrate and Mr. Huang? You're still a master, I'm sorry. The other constables who escaped were still in shock. They had never seen such a monster before, their figures were not even clear, and their companions turned into pieces of meat, which was too scary. When Wang Zhe and Lao Ho found their colleagues, Xu Xian sat there calmly drinking tea. I said, Sheriff, let's hurry back to the city. It's almost dark today, what if that monster comes? A sheriff whispered beside him. That's it. What are you panicking about? Isn't the county captain still here? You guys are waiting here, I'll go ask the county captain. When Xu Xian went to find the county captain, he heard Li Zheng say that he had already ridden a horse before a cup of tea. This scumbag, dog generation. Xu Xiao's eyes widened. Let's go. With a flick of his sleeve, he left first and strode towards the stars, seemingly eager to return to the city for dinner. A few adults, what should we do? Li was eagerly asking, but no one answered. These people are all scared out of their wits, who cares about the lives of the people in that mountain village? End of this chapter.